People often assume they understand a family simply by what they see on the outside. But the truth is, families can hide pain for years, and sometimes even decades. A home that appears calm and happy can actually be full of tension, fear, and silence. And the most surprising part is that the people who look like they have it all are sometimes the ones suffering the most. That's because pain doesn't show itself in a clean, dramatic way. It often grows quietly, behind closed doors, until it becomes impossible to ignore. In December, Jake Reiner believed the holiday season would bring relief. He imagined his family gathered together, sharing laughs, memories, and the feeling that everything could finally go back to normal. He wanted to believe that the tension that had been building for years would finally fade. But sometimes life doesn't follow the plans we make. Sometimes the past doesn't simply disappear because we wish it away. And sometimes, the things we've avoided for years come back in the worst possible way. Then came the call that changed everything. On December 14th, Jake received the kind of news that nobody is prepared for. His parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner, were gone. But the shock didn't end there. The person connected to their deaths was not a stranger. It was his own brother, Nick. In that moment, Jake's world collapsed. Not only did he lose his parents, but he also had to face a truth he had been avoiding for years. His family was not what it seemed. Jake had spent his life protecting Nick. He had defended him, supported him, and promised to always be there no matter what. But the family had a pattern of shielding Nick from consequences. When Nick acted out, his behavior was explained away. It was described as stress, illness, or temporary struggles. And while it might have been driven by love, it also allowed the problem to grow. Over time, the family's patience became a dangerous form of denial. When Jake spoke publicly, he didn't sound like someone reading from a script. He sounded like a man who had been carrying a heavy burden for a long time. He admitted he had warned his parents about Nick. He wasn't just worried. He was genuinely afraid that something irreversible could happen. That fear wasn't sudden. It was the result of years of watching warning signs go ignored. He had lived with that fear every day, and it finally came to the surface. The family dynamic was complex and painful. Jake described how the house slowly started revolving around Nick. Being the oldest, he learned to step back and give up his own space and voice. Whenever Nick became upset, the atmosphere changed instantly. Conversations stopped. Smiles disappeared. Jake learned to stay quiet to avoid conflict. Over time, the silence became a habit. It became a survival method. He learned to live without expressing his own feelings. The Reiner name carried weight, both good and bad. From the outside, it seemed like a powerful legacy, but inside, it felt like a burden. People assumed things about Jake because of his family, and he struggled to find his own identity. He didn't want to be defined by his parents' success. He wanted a life he could call his own. Journalism became his path, not because he wanted fame, but because he wanted truth and purpose. Jake studied broadcast journalism and found a passion that felt real. He worked hard and built his career step by step. He didn't want shortcuts or favors from his family's fame. He wanted to earn everything himself. Over time, he became known for being calm under pressure, professional, and grounded. But even with his career success, the pain at home continued. The family issues didn't disappear, and the silence followed him everywhere. Nick's struggles were not new. He had gone through multiple rehab attempts over the years. Every time, the family hoped it would be the last. But addiction and mental health issues are difficult to overcome, especially when they are combined. Every promise of change brought hope, but also fear. When the promise failed, the disappointment grew stronger. The family's emotional strength was slowly fading, and Jake felt like he was being forced to carry the weight alone. Jake watched his parents age quickly under the stress. Rob's shoulders seemed heavier with each passing year. Michelle lived in constant worry, waiting for news about Nick. Their love for him was real, but it was mixed with fear. They wanted to protect him, even if it meant avoiding the truth. They were trapped in a cycle of hope and despair, and they didn't know how to escape it. Their lives became defined by waiting and worrying. At times, Jake felt like he was living in the background. He became the calm one, the responsible one, the person who kept things stable. But this role came at a cost. He gave up his own voice and his own feelings to keep the family peaceful. He didn't realize how much he was sacrificing until it was too late. He learned to hide his pain, even from himself. And that silence became a part of his identity. When Nick was diagnosed with a mental health condition, things became more complicated. Reports suggest he was diagnosed years earlier, and changes in medication may have affected him. Mental health treatment can be difficult, and medication changes can cause serious side effects. When someone is already struggling, even small changes can become dangerous. It's a reminder that mental health issues must be handled carefully and with support. The family was dealing with a problem that was bigger than any of them. The tragedy became public, and the family's private pain became a public story. Jake had to speak about a situation that was deeply personal while the world watched. He had to face the media while grieving. He had to share a truth he had kept inside for years. His voice cracked as he spoke, and the pain was visible. It wasn't only grief. There was anger, confusion, and a sense of betrayal. He had been forced to confront a reality he had hoped would never happen. This story shows that wealth and fame do not protect families from tragedy. A family can look perfect on the outside, but the truth can be very different. Pain does not care about status or reputation. When issues are ignored or minimized, they can grow into something much worse. This tragedy is a reminder that it is important to address problems early and seek help when needed. Silence is not always a sign of peace. Sometimes it is a sign of danger. Jake's story also reminds us of the importance of mental health awareness. Many people suffer silently because they fear judgment or rejection. When someone struggles with addiction or mental illness, it affects everyone around them. Families need support, counseling, and honesty. Avoiding the truth may feel easier, but it can cause more harm in the long run. And the people who love someone most can sometimes be the ones who suffer the most. The family's pain was not only emotional but also physical. Constant stress can take a toll on a person's health. Rob and Michelle were not just dealing with a difficult situation, they were living inside it. Their worry, fear, and exhaustion showed in their appearance and behavior. The weight of trying to save someone else can be too much for anyone. And when the person they were trying to help continued to struggle, the hope began to fade. Jake's decision to refuse Nick's request for help after the tragedy was a turning point. It was not a choice made from anger or cruelty. It was a painful decision made from experience. He had seen how the family had been trapped in a cycle for years. He knew that helping Nick again would not solve the problem. It would only keep the cycle going. Jake's refusal was not about abandoning his brother. It was about recognizing that the situation had become too dangerous. The case also highlights how complicated mental health and addiction can be. When someone is struggling, the family often tries to help in every way possible. But sometimes help is not enough. Sometimes professional support is needed. And sometimes, even professional support fails. The Reiner family's tragedy is a reminder that mental health treatment needs to be taken seriously, with proper support, care, and follow-up. As the story continues to unfold, Jake has become a symbol of the hidden pain many families face. He has shown courage by speaking openly about what he experienced. He has also shown that grief can be complicated, especially when it involves family conflict. His voice has become a reminder that the truth should not be ignored. Even when it is painful, the truth is the first step toward healing. In the end, this is not a story about blame. It is a story about loss, silence, and the consequences of avoiding difficult realities. It is a reminder that families need to communicate and support each other before problems grow too big. It shows how important it is to speak up, seek help, and face the truth. The Reiner family's tragedy is heartbreaking, but it also teaches us a lesson. The truth may be painful, but it can also be the beginning of healing.